be present. You're like, what the heck? I'm not talking about having ashram type Zen presence. I'm talking about being present in your conversations, like when you learned how to drive the car for the first time. I learned in Queens, where my instructor took us on the Long Island Expressway with all our fellow students in the
Wow.
back. Yeah. And when I was in my 30s and back in decided to go to graduate school and I was working the city, I added learning to drive with stick shift to my list. And I thought, I'll learn in the city. And the guy took me to Chinatown. I'm talking about that kind of Zen-like focus when you're petrified for your life and others. So if you can bring that level of attention to your conversation, you're doing a good thing by yourself and others. And here's one thing I did learn in my office is I spent a lot of time on the phone, recruiting, doing background checks. I'm sure Jennifer's done this as well, and listening to voices. And it's interesting to know when the person has disconnected on the phone or what I call the notes in their voice through their breathing. When they've paused, they're thinking, and something isn't syncing up. And I used to use that cue to test it when I met them in person for an interview. And usually 90% of the time, I was right about what my assumptions were about that person. So listening to the notes in the voice of when they're being attentive or not. The same thing goes with Zooms. Cyber hands here. How many spend a good chunk of their day still on Zoom or some kind of virtual conference call situation? What are we looking at? Is anybody writing? Sarah raised her hand. Jen raised her hand.
Yep.
Interesting phenomena that's been written about is one of the reasons we get so tired, just besides the fact we're engaged and energized and looking, is that we're humans. We are always straining because the human part of us doesn't know it's a screen. We see another living, breathing thing, and we're always straining to reach them. So being conscious of this interactions and what your body is doing is just as much important about your communications as anything else. Knowing where you're at capacity and when you need to take a break.